Hey 7th graders, today we're going to be doing 11.5, dividing integers. So our essential question is the quotient of two integers positive, negative, or 0? How can you tell? Well, remember the quotient is the answer to a division problem. Well, we know that a positive number divided by a positive number is going to be positive, right? You've been dividing positive numbers for years. Whoops, you've always gotten out a positive number as your answer. Well, what about a positive divided by a negative? Or a negative divided by a positive? Or lastly, a negative divided by a negative? These are actually going to follow all the same rules as yesterday. So less rules to memorize, which is great. So positive divided by a negative, that's going to be negative. A negative divided by a positive is negative, and a negative divided by a negative is positive. Let's go over these one more time. So the quotient of two integers with the same sign is positive, right? That is positive divided by positive, and negative divided by negative. And the quotient of two integers with different signs is negative, meaning that's positive divided by a negative and negative divided by a positive. Let's do some examples. Find negative 18 divided by negative 6. Well, 18 divided by 6 is equal to 3. And let's see, they're both negative. It's a negative divided by a negative, same sign. So my answer is positive. So that equals a positive 3. Next one, 75 divided by negative 25. Well, 75 divided by 25 is equal to 3. Again, one way you can do that quickly is just by skip counting by 25s. And let's see, it looks like the 75 is positive. The 25 is negative, right? So I have a positive divided by a negative. I have different signs. So my answer is going to be negative. So that's equal to a negative 3. And lastly, negative 4/6. What does this fraction bar line mean? It means to divide. So what is 54 divided by 6? That's 9. And let's see, the 54 is negative, the 6 is positive. I'm dealing with different signs. So my answer is negative. The negative 9. Let's extend our thinking a little bit. Evaluate 10 minus x squared divided by y when x equals 8 and y equals 4. Remember, evaluate is another fancy word for solve. So we got to solve this, and it looks like they have in this expression x's and y's, but they're telling us that x is equal to 8. So whenever I see an x, I'm going to plug in 8. And y is equal to negative 4. So whenever I see a y, I'm going to replace it with negative 4. So the next step I'm going to do is I'm just going to rewrite my expression. So 10 minus x, but x is 8, so I'm going to plug in an 8 squared divided by y, which is negative 4. And now I solve. So this is a great time to review PEMDAS. First, is there any parentheses? Nope. Is there exponents? Yes, there is right here, this 8 squared, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. Well, 8 squared is the same as 8 times 8 because it's 8 multiplied by itself twice. Well, 8 times 8 is 64. Then I'm going to drop down everything I did not just use, so that 10 minus, and that divided by negative 4. And I'm going to move on with PEMDAS. So I'm all done with exponents. Now, is there any multiplication or division? Yes, there is right here. Oh, I meant to highlight that. Right here. So, whoops. 64 divided by negative 4. Well, what is 64 divided by 4? That's something that we're going to have to use some long division for, right? This is one that's hard to do just in your head. So 64 divided by 4. Well, how many times does 4 go into 6? It goes into 6 once, and 4 times 1 is 4. So subtract 4. 6 minus 4 is 2. Well, 4 can't go into 2 anymore, so I'm going to drop down that 4 and think, how many times does 4 go into 24? It goes into 24 6 times, and 4 times 6 is 24. So I subtract 24 and I'm left with 0. So 64 divided by 4 is equal to 16. And let's see, 64 was positive, 4 was negative, so that's different signs. So I'm going to replace 64 divided by negative 4 with the negative 16. And then I'm going to drop down that 10 minus. So I'm left with 10 minus a negative 16. Then I'm going to keep change flip, since this is a subtraction problem. So I keep the 10, I change that minus to a plus, and I flip that negative 16 to a positive 16. And what is 10 plus 16? It's 26. One more word problem and then we're off. You measure the height of the tide using the support beams of a pier. Your measurements are shown in the picture. What is the mean hourly change in the height? So my problem is, what is the mean hourly change in the height? And it looks like my important information is right here in the picture. At 2 p.m., the tide was at 59 inches, and at 8 p.m. the tide was at 8 inches. Now let's see, I want to know the mean or average hourly change. Well, that means I really want to know about how much it changed per hour, right? On average, because I might have changed it at 1 hour a little bit more or a little bit less, but we just want to know the average hourly change throughout this time. So how I'm going to figure out the mean hourly change is I am going to take the total change in height and divide it by the total change in time. Well, let's dive into this a little bit deeper. What is the total change in height? Well, the change in height is going to be our final height minus our initial height. Remember, initial is going to be the first height or the starting height. Well, let's see. So my final height was 8 inches. Minus, well, my initial height was 59 inches. So 8 minus 59 divided by, well, what was my change in time? Well, we started at 2 p.m. We went till 8 p.m. That's a change of 6 hours, right? So divided by 6. So now we just have to solve 8 minus 59 divided by 6. Well, what is 8 minus 59? Let's see. I'm just going to go to this little corner right here to complete 8 minus 59. So it's a subtraction problem, so we're going to keep change flip. So 8, change the minus to a plus, and flip 59 and use its opposite, so that becomes a negative 59. So 8 plus negative 59. Now we're adding with two different signs. So I'm going to find the difference between 8 and 59, which is 51. And then I'm going to use the sign from the higher number. Well, the higher number is right here. Like, that's the bigger one if it was positive. So I'm going to use that negative and get negative 51. So 8 minus 59 is equal to negative 51, and then dividing by 6. Well, what is negative 51 divided by 6? Sounds like another time to use some long division. So again, we're just going to do 51 divided by 6. We'll worry about the negative in a second. How many times does 6 go into 5? Well, no times. So how many times does 6 go into 51? It goes in 8 times. 6 times 8 is 48. And 51 minus 48 is 3. Now again, how many times does 6 go into 3? Well, it doesn't. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to that 51. We're going to add in a 0.0, right? Because 51 is the same as 51.0. Then we're going to drop that 0 down and think, how many times does 6 go into 30? It goes into it 5 times. And remember that decimal place goes back up. So that's not 85, it's an 8.5. So 6 times 5 is 30. We subtract 30 and we're left with 0. So my answer is 8.5. Let's write this in a sentence. The mean hourly change is 8.5, and let's see, what's our unit? 8.5, let's see, we did the total change in height, which was measured in inches, divided by the time, which was in hours. So my unit is going to be inches per hour. Or I could write that as inches over hours too if I wanted to write it all out. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure you start working on your 11.5 homework.